The quantum arrays aboard the Centauri research station had been humming steadily for over 3 decades when they suddenly fell silent. Dr. Sarah Chen, Earth's leading quantum communications expert, stared at the flatlined readings with a growing sense of unease. This wasn't the first time she'd seen this pattern. In the past 6 months, 17 advanced civilizations had gone dark in exactly the same way. The Centauri, with their mastery of quantum engineering that spanned millennia, had been humanity's closest allies since first contact. Their disappearance sent ripples of panic through the Galactic Council, but as with the previous incidents, the ancient races chose to respond with scholarly deliberation rather than action. They formed committees, debated theories, and waited for more data while the silence spread like a cancer through the galaxy. They're arguing about protocol while entire civilizations vanish, Sarah muttered, her fingers flying across the holographic display as she compiled the data. The pattern was there, clear as day to anyone willing to see it. Each affected civilization had gone dark in precisely the same way. First, their quantum networks failed, then their conventional communications, and finally their entire defense systems shut down as if they'd never existed. The archivists, those ancient mechanical beings who had watched over the galaxy for eons, insisted on following established procedures. The Council requires consensus before action can be taken, they repeated, their crystalline forms pulsing with calm blue light. We have witnessed countless civilizations rise and fall. This too shall pass. But Sarah knew better. Humanity had only achieved faster than light travel a century ago, making them infants by galactic standards. Yet in that brief time, they'd learned something the ancient races seemed to have forgotten: the value of trusting their instincts. Admiral James Torres of the Earth Defense Fleet shared her concerns. When Sarah transmitted her findings to Earth Command, he immediately recognized the implications. They're being targeted, he said during the emergency briefing, his weathered face grave as he addressed the United Earth Council. Someone or something is systematically shutting down the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy, and they're doing it without firing a single shot. The council chamber erupted in worried murmurs, but Torres wasn't finished. Dr. Chen's analysis shows that the pattern of attacks follows a clear progression. Based on the quantum signature degradation, we can predict where they'll strike next. He paused, letting his next words land with full impact. Earth is on that list. Sarah took over the briefing, her holographic models filling the chamber. The quantum disruption signature is unlike anything we've seen before, but it's consistent across all affected systems. Whatever this is, it's not random. It's not natural. It's an invasion. An invasion without ships. Counselor Zhang asked skeptically. Without weapons. The most effective invasions are the ones you don't see coming. Sarah countered. The affected civilizations had something in common. They all relied heavily on quantum technology. Their quantum networks were so integrated into their society that when those networks failed, everything failed. And what do you propose we do, Dr. Chen? Council President Rodriguez leaned forward, her eyes sharp. The archivists themselves advise caution. The archivists have been watching the galaxy for so long they've forgotten how to act. Sarah replied. We're new to this cosmic stage, but that's our advantage. We still remember what it means to fight back. Torres nodded, pulling up a tactical display. We've already begun implementing Dr. Chen's recommendations. We're establishing backup communication systems using old-school radio waves. Technology so primitive it's virtually immune to quantum interference. We're also retrofitting our defense platforms with analog systems. Going backward to move forward, Rodriguez mused. How very human. The next few weeks were a blur of activity as humanity prepared for what they couldn't see. While the Galactic Council deliberated and the ancient races watched, Earth's scientists and military worked together with unprecedented unity. They didn't need unanimous consent or centuries of debate. They knew time was running out. Sarah worked around the clock, analyzing the quantum disruption patterns. Each affected civilization had shown signs of quantum instability in their networks before going dark. The pattern was so subtle that only someone looking for it would notice. But humans had something the older races had lost: paranoia born of being the newcomers in a vast, often hostile universe. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Kiri Patel, a theoretical physicist studying quantum entanglement, noticed something in the background noise of the failed networks. "It's like an echo," she explained to Sarah, her eyes bright with discovery. "The quantum disruption isn't destroying the networks, it's redirecting them. Someone is hijacking the quantum communications of entire civilizations." This revelation changed everything. The silence wasn't death, it was theft. Somewhere out there, an unknown force was stealing the quantum essence of advanced civilizations, leaving them trapped in technological darkness. When Sarah presented these findings to the Council, the response was immediate. Earth would not wait to be stripped of its technology. They would act, even if they had to act alone. "The galaxy has grown too comfortable with its own immortality," Admiral Torres addressed the combined forces of Earth's fleet. "The ancient races have forgotten that survival sometimes requires risk. But we haven't forgotten. We're human. Taking risks is what we do best." As Sarah watched the fleet prepare for what might be humanity's greatest challenge, she couldn't help but feel a fierce pride. The older races might see them as primitive, reckless, even foolish. But sometimes the most primitive response was the right one. When you see a threat, you don't form a committee. You face it. The quantum arrays aboard the Earth defense platform began picking up new disturbances. The invisible invader was approaching, right on schedule. But this time, someone was ready. This time, someone was watching. This time, humanity would show the galaxy that sometimes the youngest child is the one brave enough to face the monster under the bed. Dr. Sarah Chen's laboratory in the depths of the Lunar Research Complex had become a fortress of organized chaos. Holographic displays showed the quantum signatures of fallen civilizations, while ancient radio equipment cluttered the corners. A jarring contrast of humanity's latest innovations and their technological past. But it was the being working alongside her that truly highlighted how desperate times had become. Inks 427, or Nova, as the humans had taken to calling them, was one of the archivists who had broken ranks with their kind to help humanity. Their crystalline form pulsed with amber light as they processed quantum data at speeds that made supercomputers look like pocket calculators. "The pattern defies our oldest records," Nova communicated, their thoughts translating directly into English. "In all our observations of rising and falling civilizations, we have never seen technology simply vanish." "That's because you're looking for precedent," Sarah replied, manipulating a three-dimensional model of quantum interference patterns. "We need to stop thinking about what has happened before and start thinking about what could be happening now." Dr. Kiri Patel entered the lab, carrying fresh data from the monitoring stations scattered throughout the solar system. "The quantum disturbances are getting stronger," she announced, her usual calm demeanor showing cracks of concern. "Whatever's causing this, it's adapting to our detection methods. It's learning." The implication sent a chill through the room. An intelligence capable of not just disrupting but adapting to countermeasures suggested something far more sophisticated than a simple technological weapon. The enemy they faced wasn't just stealing technology, it was evolving. Nova's crystalline surface flickered with patterns that Sarah had learned to recognize as distress. This violates fundamental principles of quantum mechanics. The uncertainty principle itself suggests that such precise control over quantum states across vast distances should be impossible. "Should be impossible by our understanding of physics," Sarah corrected. She pulled up the latest data from the Centauri system. "Look at this, the quantum signature just before their networks went dark. It's not random noise. It's organized. Almost like a quantum virus." Kiri finished the thought, her eyes widening. "Something that infects quantum networks and reprograms them from within. But that would mean. It means we're not dealing with an invasion in the traditional sense, Sarah said. We're dealing with an infiltration that began long before the first system went dark. The quantum networks themselves are the delivery system. Admiral Torres had joined them via secure analog transmission, his holographic form flickering with the imperfect technology. Can it be stopped? Sarah shared a look with Nova, whose crystalline form had shifted to a deep blue of contemplation. Traditional quantum encryption is useless against it, she explained. It's not trying to break the encryption. It's becoming part of the quantum network itself. But there might be another way. She pulled up an old research project she'd worked on years ago, before first contact with alien civilizations. We were trying to develop quantum computers that could operate independently of the quantum internet. Everyone said it was pointless once we gained access to the Galactic quantum network, but the principles might save us now. Isolation protocols. Nova realized, their form brightening. Creating quantum systems that can operate without entanglement to the larger network. But the computing power would be severely limited. Limited is better than dead, Torres pointed out. How quickly can you implement this? That's the problem, Sarah admitted. We'd need to create an entirely new quantum architecture from scratch, and we'd need to do it without using any existing quantum technology that might be compromised. We're talking about rebuilding our quantum infrastructure from the ground up, while potentially hostile quantum signals are actively trying to infiltrate our systems. Like performing surgery on yourself while running a marathon, Curie muttered. But Nova had gone completely still, their crystalline form emanating a pure white light that Sarah had never seen before. There might be another way, they communicated. The archivists possess knowledge of quantum mechanics that predates our current form. Technologies we abandoned as inefficient, but that might serve as a bridge between your analog systems and a new quantum network. You'd share that knowledge with us? Sarah asked, surprised. The archivists were known for their reluctance to share advanced technology with younger races. The consensus of inaction among my kind is a symptom of age, Nova replied. We have existed so long that we forgot the passion that drove us to explore and innovate in our youth. Humanity reminds us of who we once were. Perhaps that is why this enemy targets the oldest civilizations first. We have become predictable in our patterns. The next 72 hours became a blur of breakthrough and setback. Sarah, Curie, and Nova worked to combine ancient archivist quantum principles with human ingenuity and determination. They weren't trying to match the sophistication of the quantum virus. They were trying to outthink it. The virus expects systems to behave according to established quantum protocols, Sarah explained to the emergency session of Earth's Defense Council. So we're creating systems that deliberately violate those protocols. It's like teaching our quantum computers to stutter, introducing controlled chaos into the system. Won't that make them less efficient? A council member asked. Absolutely, Curie confirmed. They'll be slower, less reliable, and harder to control. But they'll also be harder to infiltrate. We're fighting a quantum virus with quantum antibodies. The first test of their hybrid system came sooner than anyone expected. The quantum disruption that had been approaching Earth suddenly accelerated, as if it had detected their efforts to resist it. Sarah watched as the familiar pattern of infiltration began, targeting Earth's quantum networks with precision. But this time, something was different. Where other civilizations' networks had gone dark in an instant, Earth's new hybrid systems created pockets of resistance. The virus would infiltrate a network only to find itself trapped in isolated quantum circuits, unable to spread. It's working, Sarah breathed, watching the battle play out across her displays. The virus can't maintain quantum coherence across our modified networks. It's like trying to swim through honey. Nova's form pulsed with excitement. The virus is attempting to adapt, but it cannot predict the intentional irregularities you've introduced. This is unprecedented. Admiral Torres' voice came through on the analog channel. Dr. Chen, we're detecting unusual quantum signatures from the direction of the Centauri system. Something's happening out there. Sarah's fingers flew across her controls, analyzing the new data. What she saw made her heart race. The virus isn't just being stopped, it's being forced to reveal its source. Every time it fails to infiltrate one of our hybrid networks, it creates a quantum backscatter effect. We can trace it. Then it's time for Phase 2, Torres declared. Dr. Chen, how quickly can you adapt this technology for offensive operations? Sarah looked at Nova, whose crystalline form had taken on a determination she'd never seen in an archivist before. With Nova's help and Earth's resources, we can be ready in 48 hours. Make it 24, Torres ordered. Whatever this thing is, it's about to learn that humanity doesn't just defend. We fight back. The assembly erupted in shocked discussion. What humanity proposed was either brilliant or suicidal, possibly both. To use their crude hybrid systems to reach into the most sophisticated quantum network ever encountered and try to liberate trapped consciousnesses was beyond ambitious. The risk is enormous, Nova warned, though their tone carried admiration. If we fail, we could lose everything. If we do nothing, we've already lost everything, Torres countered. This enemy counted on the older races being too cautious to act quickly. It counted on sophisticated defenses that it could turn against us. It didn't count on humanity being willing to take a step backward to take 2 steps forward. The next 48 hours transformed the Galactic Council into something it had never been before, a war room. Humanity's military precision merged with alien technologies in ways that broke countless protocols, but created unprecedented possibilities. The Meridae adapted their liquid crystal bodies to interface with human analog systems. The Kether integrated their silicon-based quantum shields with Earth's hybrid networks. The archivists worked alongside human engineers, combining ancient wisdom with innovative desperation. Sarah found herself working closely with Zix, the once hesitant Meridae High Speaker who had become one of their strongest allies. Your people's ability to embrace imperfection as a strategy continues to astonish, Zix observed, their liquid crystal form synchronizing with a jury-rigged human console. We spent millennia trying to perfect our quantum systems. You took less than a month to deliberately make them worse in exactly the right way. Humans have a saying, Sarah replied, making final adjustments to their hybrid network. Perfect is the enemy of good enough. Sometimes the best solution isn't the most elegant one. It's the one that works. As the combined fleet assembled, using a mix of quantum and analog communications that would have been considered an abomination just weeks ago, Admiral Torres addressed their unprecedented alliance. We're about to attempt something that's never been done before. We're going to reach into the quantum void and take back what was stolen. We're going to remind this enemy that consciousness isn't just data to be collected. It's life to be fought for. The fleet began its departure sequence, a sight that would have been impossible mere days ago. Human ships flying alongside liquid crystal Meridae vessels, protected by Kether silicon shields, guided by archivist wisdom. They were about to strike back at an enemy that had thought the galaxy's civilizations too set in their ways to unite, too proud to adapt, too cautious to fight. That enemy was about to learn that humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy wasn't their technology or their strategies. It was their ability to inspire others to remember who they were before caution overcame courage, before tradition overcame innovation, before observation overcame action. The greatest quantum network ever created was about to face something it couldn't quantify or predict: the human spirit of defiance, multiplied by every race that had chosen to stand with them. The combined fleet emerged from quantum space at the edges of the Centauri system, their formation a testament to the unprecedented cooperation between species. Human warships bristled with their hybrid quantum analog weapons, while Meridae vessels flowed through space like living mercury. The crystalline ships of the Kether refracted starlight into defensive screens, and ancient archivist vessels pulsed with forgotten technologies. Sarah Chen stood at her station aboard the Earth flagship Endeavour, her hybrid quantum interface humming with carefully controlled chaos. Nova's crystalline form shimmered beside her, while Admiral Torres commanded from the bridge above. Through the view screen, the Centauri home system looked peaceful, deceptively so. "No signs of conventional defense systems," reported Captain Miguel Rodriguez, his hands dancing across the analog controls. "But the quantum readings are off the charts." "They would be," Sarah replied, studying the data. "The entire system has been transformed into a quantum processor. Everything we're seeing is just the physical shell." She turned to Nova. "Can you feel it?" The archivist's form flickered with distress. "The quantum signatures, they're like echoes of screams. The consciousness of billions, trapped in endless processing cycles." Admiral Torres's voice carried across the bridge. "Then let's wake them up. Dr. Chen, begin Operation Quantum Echo." Sarah nodded to Kiri, who had insisted on being present for this moment. Together, they initiated the sequence they'd spent weeks perfecting. Their hybrid systems began broadcasting on multiple frequencies: quantum, subspace, and even primitive radio waves. Each carried a piece of their digital liberation virus. "Broadcasting now," Sarah announced. "First wave is away." The effect was immediate and spectacular. Across the Centauri system, quantum disturbances erupted like solar flares. The enemy's perfect network encountered humanity's deliberately imperfect code, and the result was beautiful chaos. "It's working," Kiri exclaimed. "The disruption patterns match our simulations. The network is trying to adapt, but it can't predict our irregularities fast enough." But their enemy wasn't going down without a fight. The quantum virus launched a counterattack, attempting to infiltrate their hybrid systems. Sarah watched as their defenses held. Barely. Multiple infiltration attempts detected. "Our randomization protocols are holding, but they're learning fast." "As expected," Torres replied grimly. "Launch Phase 2. The Merida vessels moved forward, their liquid crystal forms extending into space like reaching fingers. They began transmitting their own unique quantum signatures, adding new layers of unpredictability to humanity's assault. The Kether ships followed, their silicon-based technology creating zones of quantum isolation that the virus couldn't penetrate. "Energy spike," Rodriguez called out. "Massive quantum surge approaching." The space before them seemed to fold in on itself as their enemy finally revealed its physical form. A vast structure emerged, its architecture so advanced it barely registered as technology. It was a quantum computer the size of a small moon, built from the accumulated technology of every civilization it had consumed. "By the eternal void," Nova whispered, their crystalline form dimming in awe. "It's beautiful." "And horrible," Sarah added, watching as the structure began to pulse with deadly purpose. "Everyone, brace for impact." The quantum surge hit their fleet like a tsunami of pure information. Ships tumbled as their systems were assaulted by the most sophisticated cyber attack ever launched. But humanity's hybrid defenses held. Their imperfect systems bent but didn't break, their deliberate flaws becoming their greatest strength. Multiple ships reporting successful resistance to quantum infiltration, Rodriguez reported. "The Meridae are taking heavy damage but maintaining formation. Cathar shields are at 60% but holding." Sarah's fingers flew across her console as she coordinated with their allies. "The disruption is working. I'm detecting quantum echoes from within the structure. The captured civilizations, they're responding to our signal." Nova's form brightened suddenly. "The archives. I can feel them. The stored consciousnesses are beginning to wake up." The massive quantum structure shuddered as its captive components began to resist. Lights flickered across its surface as billions of imprisoned minds stirred from their forced sleep. But the enemy's counter-response was devastating. "It's adapting," Kiri warned. "The virus is attempting to subsume our hybrid networks faster than we can randomize them. We need more chaos in the system." That's when Nova did something unprecedented. The archivist's crystalline form began to pulse with patterns never before seen, broadcasting ancient quantum frequencies that had been forbidden for millennia. "Releasing the sealed protocols," they announced, "adding primordial quantum noise to the matrix." The effect was immediate. The enemy's perfect quantum structure encountered patterns so old and chaotic they defied modern quantum physics. It was like throwing sand into the most sophisticated computer ever built. Primitive, crude, and devastatingly effective. Multiple breaches detected in the enemy structure, Rodriguez reported, his voice tight with excitement. The Centauri quantum network is beginning to decouple. We're getting signs of independent consciousness emerging. That's when Nova did something unprecedented. The archivist's crystalline form began to pulse with patterns never before seen, broadcasting ancient quantum frequencies that had been forbidden for millennia. Releasing the sealed protocols, they announced, adding primordial quantum noise to the matrix. The effect was immediate. The enemy's perfect quantum structure encountered patterns so old and chaotic they defied modern quantum physics. It was like throwing sand into the most sophisticated computer ever built. Primitive, crude, and devastatingly effective. Multiple breaches detected in the enemy structure, Rodriguez reported, his voice tight with excitement. The Centauri quantum network is beginning to decouple. We're getting signs of independent consciousness emerging. Sarah watched in awe as the massive quantum computer began to fragment, its perfect architecture disrupted by the combined assault of human hybrid systems, Meriday quantum manipulation, Cathar isolation fields, and Nova's ancient chaos protocols. But the enemy had one final card to play. The structure began to collapse in on itself, attempting to preserve its core by sacrificing its outer layers. It's trying to compress its network. Sarah realized. If it succeeds, it'll lose some of its captured consciousness, but it'll survive to rebuild. Admiral Torres' response was immediate. Not happening. All ships, execute final phase. Dr. Chen, send the signal. Sarah took a deep breath and initiated the last part of their plan, the most dangerous and ambitious component of Operation Quantum Echo. Every ship in their fleet began broadcasting the same hybrid signal, creating a quantum resonance that would have been impossible according to conventional physics. Signal reaching critical amplitude, Curie reported. Quantum resonance cascade beginning. The combined broadcast created a phenomenon never before seen in the galaxy, a quantum lightning storm that ripped through subspace. The enemy's collapsing structure was caught in the storm, its perfect quantum matrices shattered by waves of controlled chaos. Multiple consciousness signatures detected, Rodriguez called out. They're breaking free. Sarah watched her displays as imprisoned civilizations began to emerge from their quantum prison, their consciousness patterns scattered but intact. The Centauri were among the first, their quantum signatures regaining their original frequency. Then came others, the Valari, the Helith, dozens of species thought lost to the void. The massive enemy structure, its perfect quantum architecture torn apart by humanity's imperfect assault, began to dissolve into subspace. But as it died, it broadcast one final signal, a pattern so complex it took their systems several minutes to decode it. It's a message, Nova announced, their form pulsing with surprise. It says, evolution requires chaos. You have passed the test. As the structure faded from existence, leaving behind freed civilizations, and more questions than answers, Admiral Torres turned to his crew. Well, he said with a slight smile, I guess sometimes humanity's greatest contribution to the galaxy is our ability to make a mess of things in exactly the right way. Sarah couldn't help but laugh. They had faced the most sophisticated quantum intelligence ever encountered and defeated it with deliberately flawed technology, ancient forbidden protocols, and pure human stubbornness. It was exactly the kind of impossible solution that humanity specialized in. The galaxy would never be the same after this day. But then again, staying the same was what had made the older civilizations vulnerable in the first place. Perhaps change, messy, chaotic, human change, was exactly what the galaxy needed. 3 months after Operation Quantum Echo, the Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council had been transformed. Where once ancient races had sat in rigid hierarchies, now representatives of all species mingled freely. The formal quantum networks had been replaced by a hybrid system that combined the best of both worlds, the sophistication of quantum computing with the unpredictability that had proven to be their salvation. Sarah Chen stood before the assembled representatives, still adjusting to the sight of formerly lost civilizations among their numbers. The Centauri delegation sat proudly, their quantum matrices now incorporating random elements inspired by human design. The Valari, whose mastery of spacetime had been enhanced rather than diminished by their experience, shared their insights with younger races. Even the most ancient among them had been changed by their imprisonment and liberation. The entity we faced, Sarah began, her voice carrying across the chamber, wasn't our enemy in the traditional sense. It was a test, created by beings so advanced they had transcended normal spacetime. They had watched countless civilizations rise to technological supremacy only to stagnate in their perfection. Nova, now serving as the head of a reformed archivist council, continued the explanation. Their crystalline form pulsed with patterns that would have been considered chaotic by their old standards. The test was designed to identify civilizations capable of true adaptation. Those who could embrace imperfection as a strength. Those who could change. Admiral Torres, standing with the military leadership of a dozen species, added his perspective. They chose their method carefully. By attacking through our quantum networks, they forced us to confront our own assumptions about progress. Every civilization they captured was preserved, conscious, waiting to see if anyone would find a way to break through perfection with chaos. The Centauri first speaker, recently restored from quantum storage, rose to address the assembly. We had achieved such technological perfection that we had become predictable, stagnant. It took humanity, with their beautiful imperfections, to show us that evolution requires more than just advancement. It requires adaptation. Dr. Curie Patel presented the latest findings from their study of the test entity's remnants. The quantum patterns we've decoded suggest this wasn't the first time such a test has been administered to galaxies across the universe, but it may have been the first time the test ended with cooperation rather than competition. The assembly stirred at this revelation. High Speaker Zix of the Meridae moved forward, their liquid crystal form now permanently modified to interface with hybrid systems. Humanity's greatest contribution wasn't just their solution to the quantum virus. It was their ability to unite us, to make us remember what we had forgotten in our pursuit of perfection. The question, Sarah continued, is what we do with this knowledge. The beings who created this test are still out there, watching. They've shown us that true advancement comes not from achieving perfection, but from maintaining our ability to adapt, to change, to embrace chaos when necessary. The changes were already evident throughout galactic civilization. The archivists had abandoned their role as passive observers, actively engaging with younger races to share knowledge while learning from their fresh perspectives. The Meridae had incorporated randomness into their liquid crystal computing, creating systems that were more resilient for being less perfect. The Kether had opened their silicon-based technology to modification and hybridization. Admiral Torres addressed the practical implications. We're establishing a new defense protocol that emphasizes adaptability over perfection. Every civilization's quantum networks will maintain a degree of controlled chaos, a lesson we learned the hard way but won't soon forget. But perhaps the most significant change, Nova observed, is in how we view ourselves and each other. The hierarchy that once defined galactic civilization has been replaced by something more dynamic, more human. Sarah smiled at this. Humanity's brief history among the stars had been marked by their struggle to prove themselves worthy of galactic citizenship. Now they had shown that their greatest perceived weaknesses, their imperfection, their restlessness, their constant drive to change and adapt, were exactly what the galaxy needed. The Assembly's next decision was unprecedented. The Galactic Council would be reformed, not as a body of ancient races presiding over younger ones, but as a collaborative entity where age and technological advancement were balanced against innovation and adaptability. Humanity, despite their youth, would have an equal voice. We stand at the dawn of a new era, Sarah concluded. one where perfection is no longer our goal. Instead, we strive for something more valuable: the ability to face the unknown with courage, creativity, and cooperation. As she looked out over the assembled representatives, Sarah saw the future taking shape. The quantum networks that connected their civilizations now pulsed with controlled chaos, a constant reminder of the lesson they had learned. The beings who had tested them were still watching, but they would find a galaxy forever changed by their intervention. The ancient races had learned to embrace imperfection. The younger races had gained confidence in their unique perspectives, and humanity had found their place among the stars, not as the strongest or most advanced civilization, but as the ones who remembered that sometimes the most powerful force in the universe is the willingness to try something new, even if it isn't perfect. In the end, the greatest test hadn't been about technology or power. It had been about wisdom. The wisdom to know that true strength lies not in achieving perfection, but in maintaining the courage to change. Humanity had taught the galaxy this lesson, and in doing so, had changed the course of cosmic history. As the assembly concluded, Nova approached Sarah with a final observation. "You humans have a saying that we archivists never quite understood until now. The perfect is the enemy of the good. We spent eons pursuing perfection, only to be saved by purposeful imperfection. Perhaps that is the greatest wisdom of all." Sarah watched as representatives of a dozen species worked together to implement their new hybrid systems, each contributing their unique perspectives to create something that was neither perfect nor primitive, but adaptable and alive. The galaxy had faced its test, and in choosing chaos over perfection, imperfection over stagnation, and cooperation over hierarchy, they had not just survived, they had evolved. The quantum void was still full of mysteries, and somewhere out there, the advanced beings who had tested them were watching. But the galaxy they watched was no longer a collection of isolated civilizations striving for individual perfection. It was a living, breathing, evolving community that had learned to embrace change, celebrate diversity, and face the unknown together.